I'm sure a lot of us would jump at the opportunity to be paid to tweet, and that's what today's guest does. Though it's not quite that simple, I admit, or at least it seems that way anyway. So today I'm joined by Lindsay, social media manager for Envy Gaming and all of its 500 brands, which we will get into in a little bit. But so actually, can you like break down each of the brands that you're involved with? And kind of the work you do specifically for them, because I had a quick browse through your LinkedIn and it seems you have different
Mhm.
responsibilities for different brands.
Yeah, so now being my third year almost pretty much here at Envy and being a social media manager, I get to oversee and facilitate a lot of the work that happens within Envy and Fuel themselves. So those two brands I double the most in, of course, do a lot of strategizing, helping head of social and also helping the team stay on strategy as well. And then, of course, just ideating, creating, executing. We all have similar responsibilities and a hand in all doing that. So it does take a village, especially when you do have so many brands. But those two I get to work with the most. OpTic stuff I don't really dabble in too terribly much. We already have Joey Toledo, who does that, and as well he gets assisted with Justin Palacios, so he gets to dabble in OpTic stuff as well. So a lot of their background obviously was a lot more Call of Duty centric and focused, and mine was more Overwatch focused. So it makes sense that a lot of my focus does it lie in Fuel and Envy.
Mm-hmm.
So every kind of day by day that kind of goes like day by day work that goes into that is, I mean, yeah, you get to do the whole tweeting thing. Sometimes, though, like now that it's kind of, I've grown so much, being here and in my responsibilities have, expanded and exponentially expanded since I first started. A lot of it, I don't even get to press the tweet button anymore.
Oh
I'm
no.
doing, more like internal backend stuff and decks, meetings, things like that. So it's a lot of fun, when you do get to just do a little bit of like literally everything when it relates to the internet and all the funny people that live on the internet too.
I'm
It's the
sure it
fun
keeps
little thing.
things quite varied and interesting, right? As opposed to just doing the same thing day in day out. And
Yes,
you mentioned it takes a village.
absolutely.
So like, how many people work in like social and community and like the envy side of stuff?
Yeah, so when I actually first started, there was about three or four of us. Since then, we've doubled. So we have about 7 to 8 of us, I believe, at the top of my head, 7 to 8 for sure. So we have our head of social, then me and Justin are social media managers, and then we also have Jung, who is our social media specialist, who he does a lot of our content that you see on social. So he kind of brings it to life if we have a really funny video that we have like in our, like a social curated video meme that we have like in our head. We're like, hey John, make this into a banger. Like that's his job. So he's fantastic at that. Really happy to have him too. Then we also have Jesse, who's our social media coordinator, who just got brought on 6 months ago, and he has been lovely. He's been a big help and with all hands with Fuel and NB stuff as well. And then we also have a TikTok content creator who does our TikTok part time. She's at school right now. Her name is Tori. She's fantastic. She's so cute, so funny. So really glad we have someone that gets to at least dabble in the TikTok, because TikTok is a beast of a platform. It needs so much work and attention. It literally is like one person's job. And then we also have our intern. Her name is Trinity. So she does a lot of brainstorming help with us, a lot of community engagement with us, and all that great and grand stuff. So quite a few of us, but it does take a village.
Yeah,
When
so like
especially you have to branch people off into different things. So
I imagine like some people though think like you just hop on for a day and just tweet whatever you want, and then like, oh, I need to do
yeah,
Instagram
no,
quickly. Let's bang a story up.
absolutely.
You know, so there's
Absolutely.
obviously a lot more planning that goes into it. Even like G2, who are obviously known for just
Yeah.
shit posting, is what I will call it. But purposeful shit posting. I'm sure
Purposeful
there's a lot that goes
strategic
into that.
shit posting. Yes.
Ah, that's what it
It
is. Yeah, I bet
does.
they've probably got
It
someone called
does.
strategic shit poster in their
Shit poster.
organization.
I'm
So
gonna
like
start
even
changing
that
my
takes
name to that.
even that takes a lot of work, I'm sure. But like,
It
I want
definitely
to get one
does.
of the most asked questions at Hitmarker out of the way early on,
Yeah, for sure.
because that makes the most sense. Um, uh,
Give the
uh,
people what they want.
how how do you transition from like oh, I like using social media to eventually you are running or contributing towards the social media for a brand, like what does that transition look like? Because I'm sure they are very different experiences and different beasts within themselves.
Oh wait, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry. I think I missed
Yeah,
like
no,
the
of course. I like how did
lead.
you go about using social media as a user to then eventually be going into like the
Oh,
profession of
oh my
social media?
gosh. Yes. So this was one of the biggest things too when I like that I thought about too, and I think that kind of made me really nervous in my interview, which don't ever be nervous about it because it's honestly it's not a weakness and it's not viewed as a negative. If you don't have professional social media experience, like your personal really is enough. It's like so just to start over from that though, like when I was in my
Hmm.
interview, I got asked, do you have any experience with social media? And I was like, oh no, no, I don't. You know what? I just no, I don't. I just have my own, right? Like, my Twitter and my Instagram and Facebook. I have every single social platform you can think of. And especially at the time, TikTok really wasn't that big of a thing. So, regardless of all that, I still had like my own personal brands that I think within the social media realm as well. People always say like your employers go through your social media, and that's something that they do. But I will say it does stand true, especially trying to work in social media. It's like you don't need to have experience in having professional social media, work or tasks or duties, but like having your own really is enough. And especially if you are trying to get in that field, those people will go through your socials and they will dig in them and they will go deep in them, just to make sure, like they that you uphold yourself like on your own socials. You have like that passion. You can kind of see and like have like know who has that drive on their own personal social medias, whether or not they're just outspoken talking about it, if they want to get involved in the social media industry or space or the esports space itself, or just it's just like that saying, some people like want it, some people kind of want it.
Hmm.
But I will say too, the transition into it makes you so much less too on your own social media. It's hard to keep up with like 4 brands and then also like always trying to make sure your personal brand's like on fire, so it's definitely quite the flip flop. I would say I was a lot more active posting and just being like more of an active personal brander for my own social media before I did it professionally. So that does happen. It's nothing bad though. It's just like you do majority want to put all your work into your business, right? Like
Of
where
course.
you're working at. So don't fret. Like personal social media is totally the way to go. If you're trying to get into social media, like basically use it pretty much like a portfolio if you'd like. And I would say don't even be afraid. Like some people I know are really afraid. This is gonna sound so wacky, but like to kind of be like use like kind of bad words, are scared to use like the D word or like or like freaking, like they're scared to
I'm
post like
trying to work
freaking,
out which D word because I'm English
like
and we've got
damn.
about 50 different 50 different swear words there.
Like it's okay to swear on your personal like I feel like a lot of people, I've been approached a lot of people like, oh Lizzie, like but how do I carry myself? But I mean it really just depends on different corporations, but I would say for definitely a more edgier esports world, like it's okay, don't, as long as you're not hurting anybody on the internet, like it's okay. This is
Hmm. So did you spend a lot of
such
time yourself, like as you said in your interview though, you didn't have any like professional social media experience at that point.
a
But were you actively like trying to build a following and work out different strategies and what works for you on your own?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, it was interesting to me because I used to use Twitter a lot. Then I took like a little break. I think everyone did that, especially whenever I joined Twitter in 2009. Like what? Like
All
I
right, yeah.
definitely wasn't using it then. So after the years, and especially on Instagram, I gained a following. On Instagram, like I think right before I got hired, I was at like 3,000 followers, and then on Twitter, I definitely had like 1,200 followers before I got hired. But it was like something, that like I always like enjoyed just social media just because of like the community aspect, like making friends online has always been like one of my favorite pastimes. Playing games, it's like I feel like that almost goes hand in hand
Hmm.
for a lot of people. Like gaming gives you the opportunity to connect and build a network and make friends and connections online that you can have years down the road. And I've found success in that as well. So social media kind of has like a little bit of correlation to that, because you're like, oh, these people, like we're vibing with each other on our personals, like making friends. So I did. I actually like have a little bit experience and, like, oh, like let me post this and I'm gonna interact with this person today and all that way before I even interviewed at MB. So
Okay, and when you do finally get the breakthrough and start working for a brand on
mhm.
their socials, like what? Oh God, how drastic is that switch? And like, what
Oh
kind
my
of
God.
considerations you have to make? Is it like the biggest moment of your life whenever you have to click the publish button?
Yes, it's the biggest moment of your life. Especially I feel like, you always get really excited when you start a new job and especially a job that you want. So you always want to do good. And so when you feel like you're finally doing the thing that you want to do. And for me, whenever I got hired at MB and I got to press the tweet button, I was like, oh my God, is everything perfect? Like, like check your work 10 times over kind of dealio. Like nowadays it's done it oh my 100,000 times 200,000 times and I like know like A, B, C, and D, and then I'm like, okay, ready, go. But beforehand, I'd be like, okay, let's go to A through Z. Is everything perfect? Because you don't want to mess anything up, and it really does give you like a shock, like a shock of energy, like a jolt of energy, and you're like, oh my god, I just did that. It's really exciting. It just feels like you accomplished so much.
Hmm.
There's
And
like so much energy in like one like little action, pressing the button. So it's a big transition. It's crazy.
it was like that when I published my first article as well. It was like, oh no, because I'm putting this out for
Yes.
people to judge, and it's almost theirs as well as it's mine. And then it's like, oh
Yeah.
no, yeah,
You know what they say, like whatever lives on the internet lives there forever, even if you delete it. So
yes,
it's definitely like a scary thought.
and we know that to be true in gaming and esports, especially for the bad a lot of
Literally.
the time.
All the
But
screenshots in the world.
and what would you advise someone? Say they spend a week like coming up with,
Mhm.
I don't know, a social post of some kind,
Mhm.
and that performs much lesser. Oh, let me rephrase that. And it performs worse, quote unquote, worse than something they put together in 5 minutes that was reacting to a
Oh my
viral
gosh.
moment. Like
This happens all the time.
okay, and how do you feel about that? And have you kind of changed your position on it over time?
Yeah, no, absolutely. At first, I would say because, it really is. I don't want to say, cutthroat is too harsh of a word, and like for lack of a better word, I want to say, but I do want to say, like, especially at first when you start out working in social media and you really want to do good at it, it's just like, any other job, like something you just really want to do good at it, and sometimes that happens, and it happens all the time. Like you'll think of something in 2 seconds, you'll throw it out there for the internet to see, and it'll pop off, it'll go viral, and all that good stuff, and then you'll work on something that you also think is like just as high caliber and you post it but you've been working on it for so much longer and then it does lesser. That happens all the time, but the thing is, since you kind of like realize that it does happen more often, you kind of get used to that feeling. But the feeling, I would explain it, is that it's like you can't ever put your worth, or don't ever like degrade or demean or de-worth yourself to your own self over that piece of work. Like you're doing the right things. A lot of social media is really trial and error, right?
Hmm.
It's like, okay, so let's try this and let's do this. It's something you're creating, you're recreating. A lot of marketing too is reinventing the wheel, right? Like don't fix something that's not broken. And
Hmm.
that's why you see so many meme formats get used over and over and over and over. But it's just like you just you eventually get used to the feeling. You're like, okay, you have to remind yourself, I am doing good work. This was something that was still like well thought out and good, and everyone still appreciated it. It just wasn't as appreciated as another post, and that's okay. Like that still means you're doing the right things. You're on the right path, and that shouldn't ever discourage you to not spend like a week on a social posting plan, or like something that you've been working on, like, and especially if it has to be a little bit more curated to a campaign you're doing.
Hmm.
It's a little bit more expected that sometimes, if it depends on like what the campaign's nature is, but it is a little bit expected that sometimes within the campaign there will be posts that will perform lesser than your average probably shit post or meme that you make in 2 seconds. And again, totally okay. That's just part of the business, literally nature of the business, and it's natural. So don't beat yourself up over it.
Yeah, like any scump related tweet will probably outdo a sponsored post
Yes.
for Optic Gaming. Like, it's
Yeah.
that's just good luck
You
changing
said
that.
it, not me.
Oh
Thanks.
yeah, I guess the best bet is
Anyway.
getting Scump in the sponsored in the sponsored post, But like, so
Absolutely. I mean,
so with
you
with
could.
four like distinct brands, I know you say like you're not like
Yeah.
day to day in all of them per se, but like, how do you stay on top of
Hmm.
the different like tones of voice, content, requirements for each brand? Because that's a lot of context switching anyway. But also, I guess like it might be difficult for some people to put themselves in the shoes of a brand which does is not a living entity per se, and obviously
Right.
posting things that are solely, I guess, in line with how that brand's seen externally.
Right. No, absolutely. And the thing is too, it's with these brands, they're not, like you said, they're not a living entity, but you are, right? And you are a representative of the brand, and you can make that brand feel like a living entity, which is obviously something that I've done in my work a lot, that I've made it very important within my work. And I feel like it has very significance to connecting and with I don't even like to call them fans, but just our audience and our friends and our community, because it makes them, feel like they are a part of not just the brand, but like the intimacy of the people within the brand, right? And they know that there's a human behind the accounts. So to try to balance all of those different tones out, I mean, to be fair too, we have switched tonalities quite a bit within our brands too. So not just trying to keep up with them today within Optic and Optic Texas voices, and then of course you have the Envy and Fuel voices. But I mean, if you go back and you kind of like do a few case studies, you'll see that we have switched tonalities in the last few years of Envy, Fuel, and even Empire when Empire was here, right? And that itself has always been like a work in progress, like trying to always nail down a tonality, and then to keep it like right, to be consistent with it is always going to be a work in progress, because especially when you're switching up like tonalities, you'll be like, oh wait, hold on, this one might actually sound too much like this one. So like I said, especially when you're in transition period from switching up tonalities, as you have to
Hmm.
sit there and like just I don't even know how to explain it. Like you have to sit there and you're just like, okay, so what wording can I use better, or grammatically can I use better, or just the whole nine yards, like everything that goes into it, like white space, even punctuality. I mean, everything that goes into it, and you have to. It's kind of like testing you, right? It's kind of like taking like a reading test. It feels like to try to keep up with the different voices and tonalities. But once you really do have them nailed down, it's really easy. It's kind of like smooth sailing. Kind of comes like second nature, because you're like, okay, this is what we're doing, and we always have decks and documents that back this up, right? Because we put these things out on paper because they're part of our strategy.
Hmm.
So we're like, this is how this brand's tonality is. This is how this brand's tonality is, and this brand, and blah blah blah. And then here's examples, right? And do's and don'ts for the tonalities of each brand. And so it's kind of like studying it. So the more you do it and the more you study it, the more you'll get used to it, of course. So, and I would say too, to people who are starting in social media and who do probably get a little bit nervous about whether or not they can nail down tonality, don't don't be nervous about it. It does take time, but it'll come like second nature to you once it happens. Like once that, the more you do it, it's like the more practice, the more you get used to it, it'll come like second nature to you.
So would you say like refer back to documentation and the strategy that you've it's
Yes,
already established if you're
absolutely.
ever unsure?
Yes, ever unsure, absolutely just keep those documents on hand. And obviously, if you have peers that work with you in this space and that might have been, here longer than you, or someone that's above you that does, help drive the vision, you can also ask them and be like, hey, how does this look? Do you think this is good or not? That's what a lot of social is too. We always like to use the buddy system, like here at Envy and Optic, we're always reviewing our stuff with each other. We're always like, how does this sound? How does this look? Before we just press the button and send it, because we want to make sure enough eyes are on it, because
Mm.
two, four eyes, six eyes, eight eyes are all better than one, two, and then like four brains is always better than one brain. So if you ever just unsure, refer back to the documents, and then just always ask for someone's review of it.
That was some good quick maths. That you probably had me stuck for a bit there. But like
No, it's
also,
okay.
I think especially at more established organizations, since I'm kind of trying to keep it specific to gaming and then esports, like they will have considered their like tone of voice and how they approach things across every facet of the business. So I assume like almost if not everyone on the team will be pretty much like rowing in the same direction when it comes
Yeah,
to these things, right? So
definitely.
like you probably become immersed in it the more you speak with the people around you, and you'll know what's going on in the other departments.
Absolutely. Exactly. Yep. Nailed it.
But
Right
that
on the
I'm
head.
speaking purely guesswork there, as I've never worked at an esports organization, and I don't think they would want me either. So we're fine with that. But like, so I'm just saying. Oh, I know there's some that wouldn't want me anyway. I'll
Like,
put it
all
that way.
right, everybody, we're hiring Adam. You
No,
hire
no,
me.
no, no, no. I don't. Well, I mean, I know your CEO. He's a nice guy, but he didn't reply to my DM the last time I messaged him. So
Oh,
I'm gonna have to
I'm
turn down
sorry.
that job offer. That's inevitably coming through now. So when it comes to sponsored content and campaigns, like
Mhm.
how does that change? Just to give a bit of insight into people who haven't yet got to that stage. Like obviously you have to consult with the brand that you're working with and get stuff approved, right? So like what's your kind of
Right.
process, or how does it change things when the sponsors are involved?
Okay, so sponsorship and then organic social campaigns are way two different things. But I will start off with the organic one first.
Hmm.
So organic campaigns obviously are happening. Typically they happen around our marketing beats, right? So what do we have going on? If is it something competitively? So esports centric. So do we have a major coming up, right? So like OpTic Texas major, or do we have a
Mm.
fuel land coming up, or a fuel event, or what digital events do we have coming up? Like we have, we are partners with Children's Health, so so in the past we've had our streamathons, and then we also have our organic social campaigns that are more obviously people and culture created. So we have, Women's Month, Black History Month, Pride Month, Latino Heritage Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, like, all of those that we have to, and there's more than that, just so many more than that. But all of those that we
For
have to
sure.
take into account, that will be a lot of organic content that we, create here with our ideas, and then bring them to life and post them externally for everybody to see. Um, and that process is just always, I guess, first and foremost within marketing, we talk about it and we're like, oh, hey, this is coming up. And then we're like, okay, we need to make a campaign for it, right? And so it'll start with us in like social, because it's always usually social campaigns, right? So it'll be us in social to start these campaigns. And we really just break break it up, just like these campaigns on what's happening around that date, or what's happening like around that event. Where can we maximize our capabilities, and where can we maximize the experience? And then, from there, we'll just start ideating everything that we can. We don't ever like to limit ourselves to, like, a lot of the ideas we put in these decks. We're like, okay, reach for the stars. And sometimes the stars really aren't reachable. So it happens. You will create, a lot of like organic marketing and social campaigns that will have ideas in there that won't be utilized or will be scratched, just for literally any given good reason. It could be logistics. It's just, cost, everything, or just time. It's just a little piece of everything that, you'll that you might lose out on those ideas. So once all of those are done, and then we all, if there's a few of us working on it together, we'll all review it together. Sometimes, depending on what everyone has going on, or through people's strengths, we'll split it up in different sections too. It really just depends on what we're working on.
Hmm.
And then we'll go and review it, um, internally, just us social, say what we like about it. Then we'll kind of bring it to the bigger group marketing. Then once, we overview it with marketing, and everybody even above us, laterally, we'll review it with them. Then after that, we'll take it to C-suite, and usually approvals happen. And so that's typically the organic way of how we get those ideas and those campaigns approved. And then sponsorship's a way different ball game. It's similar, like, in how we get started, but a lot of the times our partners have ideas too that, um, it just depends on the partner. But we do have some partners that have ideas too that they would like to see them implemented within our campaigns. And we do
Hmm.
have some partners that are just like, do whatever you want, like, we trust you, full reign, right?
Yeah.
So depending on what the partner wants, or what the obligations are to meet, to their standards, and to obviously like our contractual needs, we always want to keep our partners happy. Then we'll go from there and create all the ideas and build it out and everything like that. And then we'll meet together internally about it, of course, before we bring it to the partner, meet with marketing, meet with sales and partnerships. Absolutely. And then from there, it'll be presented to our partner as well. So similar but different in how those things get made and approved and all that good stuff.
But like, is one thing I can see is it's very important for people with knowledge of like your brand, the one that's being sponsored and putting out the sponsor content. It's very important for you to be involved in that process, because at the end of the day, you know
Yes.
the brand better than they do, right? So you know what, hypothetically, what's going to resonate more,
Yeah, absolutely.
and bang
So,
more, as the kids will say on social, I
yeah.
suppose.
It's true. Yeah. There's a lot of times, well, not now, but I would say there has been a lot of times where we've had to bring recommendations to our partners and say, hey, this actually might be better because this is how our audience is. And then this is like where our audiences overlap. And like, we think this could be a better, kind of pretty much a better pivot than what we
Hmm.
initially were originally planned on, just because we think it'll hit harder for our audiences. So yeah, that happens a lot
Yeah.
too, for
Like,
sure.
hey, sponsor, there's enough videos of pro players with their arms crossed looking moody. How about we do something else for once? I assume that said quite a lot, to be
Right.
fair, based on what I've seen.
And it's in a lot of them too, it's kind of just like, how do we, take the normal how-to videos and spice them up and make them to where like our partners, they're not just like those normal, like, okay, how do you, like do aerial training in Rocket League, like,
Mm,
take those like little bits and pieces and kind of just really take them and dive into them and go deep, like where the audience is actually going to like retain the information and also just click on that video, right? And so it's just like always trying to stay like so creative and like try to do the next best thing just for the partners because you're like, this has been
mhm.
done 500 times, let's make it better and bigger and out of the box, that way we can make all of our audiences happy too. So
Awesome. And as a creator, like, we call it writer's block in journalism, of course, but I'm
yes.
sure there's like, we'll just call it a wider creativity block. Like, when that
Yeah.
unfortunate beast strikes, what do you do to get out of
Oh
the
my
funk,
gosh.
or just not have a complete panic attack because you've lost the magic you once had?
Yeah, so this happens more often than not, I think. And I mean, and I feel like for me, it definitely comes in waves. You'll have periods of just like, oh, like days and weeks, and just being like, boom, 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 like everything,
Hmm.
like I'm on like my mojo jojo, like everything is going great. And then like, the next day you just kind of like, yeah, you hit that writer's block, that creativity block, and you're like, oh my gosh, um, like, what do I do now? Right? Like nothing is
Hmm.
just making sense. It's kind of just like playing tic tac toe with yourself a little bit,
Yeah.
but it happens a lot. And like for me, I just have to like find more inspiration. So you have to like change up. As weird as it sounds, you have to like change up your scenery a little bit. I mean, if you're doing the same monotonous like routine or staring at the same wall every day, I mean, you are going to start feeling like a little bit more that you're stuck in a stagnant area, or like area of your brain that you really can't get out of. So it's
Hmm.
best if you can get up and walk around, find a new spot. Like for me, in office, like I just need to like get up and like walk around. Sometimes I'll go sit in like the PGL. It's usually really dark back there, so that's why I don't do as often as I'd like to, because I'm a sunlight kind of gal. But it's just like changing your scenery, just getting some fresh air, finding inspiration too. Like, as bad as it even sounds, I mean, I like to scour the internet for inspiration, like Pinterest or Instagram pages, like things like that, and Twitter pages. And sometimes that it doesn't work either, because you're just kind of like, okay, well, it's not going to happen today. I'm just kind of over it. Like the brain, it's just not clicking, and that is okay. It's completely normal. You can't always expect your brain to be running 100% on creative fuel every single day.
Hmm.
Um, and that's really hard to do. And also, people have different times of when their creativity does spark, right? It's okay if you're 100% just not creative one day. Like, you really do have to have like that, some sort of like balance, and try to like change it all up. But like for instance, like Zach is more creative like way early in the morning, and for me, I'm more creative like in the afternoon. So it's just
That's the ones you've had like 3 coffees.
yes, I just
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
wake up. That's the thing too, because like some people, and I think this goes hand in hand. Like I don't know about the science, don't quote me on it, but I'm just saying from experience. Like I'm also just not like a very early morning person. Like I usually get up around like 7. If I'm really feeling crazy, like 6, but like 7 or 8 are usually like my cues. And then Zach's usually up by like 5 and like 4 sometimes. And I'm like, he's definitely more of a morning person than I am. So it makes sense that
Mhm.
his creativity starts flowing in the mornings. And then for me, I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely gotta like, I just gotta wake up first. I just need to wake up a little bit, like wash, like scatter all the dust off of my head and get it rolling. So it happens a lot. You just got to change up your space and routine, things like that. Get some coffee too, or tea if you're not into coffee. Like, try out
Mm,
something new. Even food, like food can help spark with creative like mindsets too. I mean,
mm.
get you some fruit, just something, just got
Well,
to change
you
it up.
mentioned changing your scenery. I find this might sound pure disgusting, like just in like a really cringy, cheesy way. But like I
Yeah.
find like changing my mental scenery in a sense where I completely remove the context of which I am struggling, and I
Yeah.
don't know. So if I'm writing about a business losing
Yeah.
$40 million or something, and I'm like, oh god, I can't quite get this out. I'll go read something on evolutionary biology, or just like something that's happened in space. They
Yeah.
found a new planet. You know what I mean? Just like completely remove myself from it, and then come back to it a little bit later
Yeah.
on, 10, 15
Yeah.
minutes, an hour, whatever, fresh. And typically
Yeah.
things seem to solve themselves, or I don't know, like
Yeah.
words seem to place themselves a bit better than they did before, um,
Absolutely.
but I see some people complain about writer's block for like weeks or months, or like creative blocks for extended
Yeah.
periods of times. And I'm like, yeah, maybe no amount of reading about space will help that. But definitely when it comes to those little moments in the day where you're putting
Yeah.
pressure on yourself, that's probably yeah, when you're pressuring yourself to deliver when you're already not quite there, like that's probably the worst thing you can do. So thank you for
Absolutely.
answering that. I appreciate it,
Yeah.
because I feel there's a lot of imposter syndrome in the industry, and there's a lot of like,
Absolutely.
oh god, I don't know what to do, and nothing I do is working. You know what I mean? So I think that's important, and being mindful of time. I've got a couple more little bits, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Go
And
for it. Yep.
when I was doing my very basic cursory research prior, it seems like a big part of your job is on community management, which is of course like
Mhm.
a wider, I guess, like the wider space of socials, which feeds into community as a whole.
Mhm.
So for someone like me who is, I'm very one track minded, and I know what I know, and that's it, and that's like the writing space, right? Like what
Yeah.
exactly does that entail of? Because I assume it's not just sitting there in a Discord chatting with fans, right?
No, that's actually like I would say it's that is like one thing that's important to do, but that is like it's that's just like one thing out of like the whole
That,
like
because that's what
yeah,
my mind goes to, community management. I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, just having a
yeah.
laugh with fans, you know.
It's yeah, and it is like that. Like a lot of it is like, front end having fun with fans and, directly interacting with them, whether that's on Discord, Instagram, I mean, Twitter. Like, and that's the thing. If you think about it, it can't just interact with fans on one platform. You have to interact with them
Hmm.
on Discord and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and a YouTube. Even YouTube comments got to
And
reply to
Envy's got
those
its own
too.
membership program, right?
Yes, we do. We actually do. We're
So just another
about,
platform for you.
yeah, it's just another platform. So we do have one of those. And we're about to like revamp it though, and it's about to be really cool. So
Okay.
hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying that, but
Well, this will
but
go out a
definitely.
little later than when we're recording, so you're probably safe.
Okay, good, 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 good. Anyways, so it's gonna be really cool. But even like then too, so even then too, honestly, you have to come up with like a lot of plans. Like we have Discord plans that we, you know, have made like try to make campaigns on, and like just basically like how do we want to like refresh the Discord, or how do we want to keep it organized, or do we want to add or change channels, like things like that. Like, but a lot of that even does come down to like community management, because it's trying to always like make sure that the audience and the community always has the best experience possible, even whether or not it's interacting, right? So a lot of it is like overlay, right? So like how is the Discord overlaid, or is our Twitter, does it reflect the tonality, division, and is it warm to our community? Like, is it inviting? Is it welcoming? Um, and how are our like social campaigns in general? Like, is it going to resonate well with the audience? Is it going to, how are our community going to like this? And a lot of what we do is literally centered around, and you have to center everything around your community, because they're the people who put you in business, right? Besides partners, of
Hmm.
course, but they're the people who literally put you in business and who actually care about you, and they care about, what way the business goes and everything like that. So community really is the heart and the soul and the forefront of esports, and just like it pretty much is in a traditional sports, right? Like
For
some
sure.
biggest fan bases in the world, like Chelsea, Manu, like Cowboys is, up there. Shockingly, saw that on Forbes. Really, I was really happy about that. But even then, because they don't take those for granted, right? Like they don't take like the fact they have a big community, a big following and fan base for granted. Like they always want to be able to give that experience, to their fans. And the same thing applies to here to esports. We want to make sure that when we do events, um, like we're about to launch an event for Fuel, and it's like you'll find out later too. We're about to launch like this event for Fuel, but the event is actually hosted by the Outlaws. It's our first game back this year for Overwatch League Season 5 for Fuel. So it's May 6th in San Antonio, and like something like that is like, being community front facing too is not just digital, it's live, right? So it's
Hmm.
physical. So like I'm definitely going, and I can't wait, because I've always like loved the events too, but it's like always being able to be present, be able to kind of just like be there and have like a representative, even like physically besides just digitally.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like taking like what you do even digitally in person. So you're like, okay, hey, we're chatting on Twitter, chatting on Instagram, chatting on Discord, but like, the fans really do also not just sometimes even just want to see the players, they want to see staff in person as well. So a lot of that, like I spent a lot of my time at the last few Fuel events talking to a lot of people, but that's like what I love to do too, because I was like, oh my god, hi, like thanks for being here, like you're awesome. So it's not just like always like responding to people, digitally, and especially like just live as well, but it's pretty much curating your entire company around like in the vision, right? Like around like, okay, this is our audience, and how can we give them the best experience possible from like any kind of standpoint, merch, social, video content,
Hmm.
live events, digital events. And it's it's a lot, but it's really rewarding. It's so rewarding. And I think, and that's why I like, that's I was gonna say I think that's why I love it so much, but I know that's why I love it so
That's
much.
why
So
you
it's
love it
not
so
myself.
much. Well,
Yeah, it's a lot
I
of
can
work, but it's so
say,
rewarding.
I can say, like, living and growing up in English football culture, one thing I can say for sure is fans will let the club know if they feel like they're being taken for granted. Like
Right,
that's
absolutely.
one thing that is for sure. The guy that you mentioned, like Chelsea and Man U, um, yeah, like maybe
Definitely.
Chelsea's a prime example at the moment, you know. But like it also means
Yeah,
that they're very appreciative when they do feel like they're being valued and stuff as well, right? And
exactly.
that's when
Absolutely.
you know you're doing it right for sure.
Exactly.
And
Absolutely.
do you think it's important to be part of a community before you can manage and engage with it to some degree?
Well, you know what? Like, I feel like I don't know. Some people have asked me before too, and they've always been like, "Well, how do I be a part of a community?" And I just want to tell people, because I feel like people. Okay, sorry. I'm trying to like organize my thoughts.
Yeah, of
So
course.
there's people, there's different types of people. So there's like extroverted, introverted, and then kind of extroverted, kind of introverted, right? And I've had some people that have come to me and they've told me before, like, "Hey, Lindsay, like I'm really like a shy person, really introverted. I really, like I want to be part of this community, but I don't think I just like have the energy to, send 100 messages a day in a Discord." And for me, I don't think, like you don't need to like speak up or like say something to be a part of community. Like if
No.
you feel like you have a passion for that community, or that organization, or the people that are even in it or surround it, and you find like you have a belonging in a place there, you can already consider yourself a part of the community. You don't need to like put up a standard, like a especially unrealistic one to yourself of saying,
Yeah.
oh, if I'm going to be a part of this community, then I should make it like make it to where I post like 100 messages in a month or something. Like, and I didn't, and it breaks my heart when people have asked me that. I'm like, no, 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 you don't need to do that. No, no, as long as you don't even have to say one message, right? Like you can, especially when you just join a Discord. Like if you are, we have Fuel fans and the Fuel Discord who never say anything, but I could guarantee you they still feel like they're part of the community even though they never have to say something, right? And that's what it's supposed to be about. You should feel like this is a safe space to where I can just literally be myself. I don't have to talk, and like literally that's what some people are like. That's how they just be themselves. They don't really want to like always talk on the internet and things like that.
Hmm.
But if you can just feel like you have a belonging and you like that organization, you like that community, then you should 110% consider yourself part of it, right? Like I don't think there's ever like going to be any line or standard to, who's actually a community member and who's not, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're a fan and you're passionate and you like it, then absolutely, like you're a part of the community. And if there are people out there who do have like weird lines and they're like, that doesn't make a community, or like they're not part of the community, that's wrong. like, like straight up, that's
It's not very
wrong.
community like
No,
to treat
it's
other
not
people like
community
that,
like
is
at
it? You know.
all. Right. That's excluding people. And you want to be an inclusive, warming, welcoming space, no matter who sends 5,000 messages and who sends five, like, or
And I've got
interactions even.
and I know what you're saying.
So,
I've got one more thing that's related to this. Like, so
yeah.
is it hard to manage a community when it is so fragmented across however many platforms, or does it not bother you at all? Because for me,
Oh,
like I would find it hard trying to build one cohesive thing, or like see in my mind I'm already aiming for one cohesive community when
right.
in fact maybe it's just a bunch of like sub communities and micro communities.
And there's a lot of
Right.
course, there's so many of those in esports and gaming as a whole. Oh my goodness. Like, I think, it's, in my personal opinion, I think that esports and gaming does have the most probably fragmented communities, and pretty much people who have different peaks of interest, but still kind of funnel down and into like that one category of like, I kind of like that game, but I really like the players, or like I
Yeah.
kind of like this board, but like I only like it because of this one player, kind of thing. So I feel like esports as a whole is just a lot more fragmented, especially than
Yeah.
traditional sports. You see it a lot more within gaming, and I will say it is difficult, especially whenever you're just trying to flip flop in between the different brands, of course. So Envy's audience is different than Fuel's and communities, right? Like the community is way different than Fuel's, and OpTic and OpTic Texas have similar like communities as well, but they are different. And
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
and every brand and every organization does have like different fragmented communities, of course. But then those people who I consider everybody who is like a friend or a fan of the brands a part of the community. But there are, like again, like there are different ones. It does make it difficult whenever you do have to kind of flip flop back and forth in between the difference between like trying to create a better fan experience and also like really retain those fans as well, and make them like a loyal and staying community from MV side and also like Fuel side. And then of course OpTic is just one of their own. They already got the whole thing down. Greenwall has been going strong. like they've really they've like nailed like they're just one big like community, and I don't even think honestly like they are like too terribly fragmented, but with like the different changes that we've had at Envy, it has been different, trying to like grasp different people to come in and communize them, and then just
Hmm.
trying to like keep them too, because it's like we've been changing so much at MV, as you guys have seen like the last 3 years, just with the OpTic merger and everything like that.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, OpTic have had to
it's a
rebuild
community
as well
change
after
too.
OpTic have been rebuilding after a difficult few years as well, right? So
Yeah, definitely
it's
very difficult. So
but like yeah, they already have it pretty much figured out, right? So it seems at least.
yeah.
Sometimes for the best,
Appreciate
and in my opinion, sometimes not for the best, but they're fierce and they're loyal. You can say that much. And I don't
Yeah,
want to take up any
absolutely.
more of your time, but first I want to thank you for taking the time to speak to me and
Oh,
obviously
thank
share your
you.
immense wisdom for everyone who checks this out. and also give you an
Thank
opportunity
you.
to plug whatever you feel necessary to plug.
Okay, well, aimlessly plug. I guess, I mean, my socials are just, they're pretty much all my first and last name. So if you want to drop me a follow, drop a like. My DMs are always open, no matter what platform. So if you ever message me, I will reply. It may take a couple days, and I'm really sorry, but I will always get to my messages and I will reply. If you ever have any questions and just want advice, or someone to talk to about esports or social media in general, again, my DMs are always open. I want to help wherever I can for whoever I can. So anytime. Lindsay Caudill.
There
That's
you go. You're a nicer person than
it.
me. I don't respond to as many DMs anymore. I used to be that way, but it's
It's
taken
okay.
its toll on
Everyone's
me
a
over
little bit
time.
different. Yeah. I want to drop my
Well,
info.
anyway, thank you again for taking the time and for sharing your
Yes.
experience. I appreciate it, and thank you to
Thank you,
everybody
Adam, for having
at
me.
home
And
/ in
thank
the
you.
office for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you.